So this is one of those better late than never stories. Yep, chances are you've probably all seen Dunkirk by now. I'm really sorry I couldn't get it out earlier, but spoiler alert, it's such a great movie that I thought I gotta review this. I gotta at least share with the Silver Screen dudes what my opinions are about this movie. So let's do Dunkirk. You can practically see it from here. This is Kenneth Branagh's stoical naval officer talking about home, a theme that constantly recurs through Christopher Nolan's long-nurtured wartime epic and is felt throughout the course of the movie. Ironically, it may also be a reference to the very, very large IMAX screen on which I saw this, because you practically could have probably seen this screen from France. But I mean, this thing stretched beyond the corners of my eyes and my imagination, both vertically and horizontally. But my friends, whether you see this on an IMAX screen, whether you see this on a Cineworld super screen, or whether you see this on a normal cinema screen, see this movie in the cinema, you must. Now, the story of Dunkirk, which is a flotilla of civilian vessels coming to the aid of the British Expeditionary Force during the evacuation of Dunkirk in France in 1940, has been addressed before on screen. Going all the way back to 1942, we've got Mrs. Minerva, which very much for its time was a moral-boosting portrayal of the events. In 1948, you've got a movie of the same name, Dunkirk, starring Richard Attenborough, which showed us some good old British pluck. More recently, we've had the astonishingly choreographed scene from Joe Wright's movie Atonement, which was an incredible movie to witness. Followed up soon after that by Their Finest, starring Bill Nighy, which was a bit more of a tongue-in-cheek affair. But this story of Dunkirk, Nolan has made this landscape his own. If we look at this movie as a time capsule and compare it to all other movies that depicted this event, Nolan's will be considered in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, for all intents and purposes, for the very long foreseeable future, Nolan's version will be considered the definitive version and depiction in cinema of this event. This movie, I don't throw this comment around very lightly, but it's as close as we will get to a cinematic masterpiece this year. We open with a street skirmish as young Fionn Whitehead's character Tommy dodges and hides from on-firing Nazi bullets, as well as falling pamphlets that are saying, "We surround you," foreboding an ominous presence that is ever approaching but never seen. Intertitles tell us that French and British troops are hoping for deliverance, ... for a miracle. And then that is followed up directly by a Bergman-esque haunting depiction of death that just envelopes the beach scene. The beach and the pier that jut out from it, where all the troops are trying to board the larger vessels to get home, is entitled The Mole. And this land-based narrative strand is one of three. A second, which is entitled The Sea, finds Mark Rylance's determined Mr. Dawson, I believe he's called, piloting one of the aforementioned pleasure vessels trying to get to Dunkirk, and on the way picking up Cillian Murphy. I've made this mistake in the past. I listened to Silver Screen Dudes back in my review of Free Fire, link above. I called him Cillian Murphy, and I just nearly made the same mistake again. Sorry, can we rewind that? Cillian Murphy. Mark Rylance's character, Mr. Dawson, picks up Cillian Murphy. You see, I do listen. And a third, entitled The Air, follows Tom Hardy's Spitfire pilot Farrier as he battles the Luftwaffe over the sea and land. Now, ingeniously, these three strands of land, sea and air play over three different time periods over the period, I believe, of an hour, a day and a week. But as the stories interlace with boats, boots, planes, and the time is both compressed and elongated, it's always complex, but it's always clear. Much like Nolan's 2000 film Memento, you never feel lost in this movie. And for all its visual splendor, Dunkirk above everything, I'd say, is a masterclass in a director showing how dexterous he can be in handling time, in showing the elasticity of time. This is obviously a theme that Nolan likes, both from Memento, he explored it also in Interstellar, but I think this is the director at the height of his powers. But I just said above everything it shows the elasticity of time. No, that's my mistake, my friends. Above everything, it is the thunderous sound effects and soundtrack that assault your senses in this movie that are the star attraction. But the genius of all the sound is that this movie is minimalistic in dialogue. There's little to no dialogue. The dialogue that we do have, very poignant, but it's minimalist. So this movie, although the sound is almost a character into itself, almost plays in its unfolding like a silent cinema. It's completely visual, and it's that visual treat is elevated by the actual sound of the movie, but never ever complemented or reinforced by dialogue. The dialogue, I say again, minimal, and the movie deserves huge applause for that. And obviously the part that everyone's talking about, I said at the beginning, I'm sure you've seen this now, the part that everyone's talking about, the dogfights. For me, they rival, if not better, Howard Hughes' 1930 movie Hell's Angels. You're right there in the cockpit over expansive stretches of sky and sea. This is, for all intents and purposes, virtual reality without the goggles. That's how immersive it is. And beneath all of this is Hans Zimmer's devastating score. It's a blend of regret, tension, and almost expectation that, I don't believe this was an accident, rises and falls much like the tide going in and out of the Dunkirk beach. I may be assigning too much credit to Nolan here, but I don't think the way that sound rises and falls is an accident. That is meant to mimic the ever-impending doom and meant to mimic the rising and falling of the tide. In fact, going deep into film here, do you know what this tonal style reminds me of? And I suggest you all go watch it. 1930s All Quiet on the Western Front. It's very similar in its tonal delivery to that film. But I'm praising, and you've probably noticed that this review is very different to my other reviews. I'm not going into individual actor performances there, because this is, I've always believed that roles are not there to serve the actors. Actors are there to serve the role. And Hollywood is usually guilty of not following through with, it's not a rule, but it's a belief that I have. The actors in this movie are there to serve the role. And that role is to make all the characters on equal pegging, equal hope, equal devastation, all equally searching for that miracle. Obviously Tom Hardy's brilliant, obviously Cillian Murphy's brilliant, Fionn Whitehead is a revelation, Kenneth Branagh is just a god amongst men with his acting. But this movie is not about the acting, it's about the set piece, it's about the sound, it's about that moment in time, and it's about fear and that longing for home. But it is not perfect, sadly. Although it is structurally pretty immaculate, I would say, there's a few false notes that come in, like with One Direction's Harry Styles. I'm not talking about him specifically, I actually didn't think he was bad, but him delivering lines like he's got an accent like sauerkraut sauce took me out for a bit. Also, I would like to add that Cillian Murphy, although brilliant as ever, wasted in this movie. I think you didn't need to have an actor that big for that little role. I'm almost contradicting myself from before, because I obviously did say that the actors are there to serve the role. But whereby Tom Hardy's hidden by the mask, whereby Kenneth Branagh is used minimalistically, Cillian Murphy's very prevalent. And that took me out. Not because Cillian did anything wrong, but I thought you didn't need that actor for that role. So that I thought was a miss. And finally, this is going a little bit off topic, and maybe people are going to throw me under the bridge here and say that I shouldn't bring this in, but historically I think that although it's brilliant because it's a British movie, you know, Rule Britannia and all that, But the fact of the matter is that the British Expeditionary Force were a fucking embarrassment. Historians may disagree with me, and much smarter men may disagree with me. But the Dunkirk evacuation was the result of a disastrous campaign by the British Expeditionary Force, and the whole thing was a bit of a fucking disaster, to be honest. The fact that it's almost, twisted historically to be some sort of, shallow victory or tragic victory made me go, It's a little bit like Mel Gibson with Braveheart. Great film, but let's make one thing clear. The Scots never beat the Brits at the Battle of Stirling, because that didn't happen. The Scots took the Stirling Bridge. They took a bridge. Now that doesn't mean that Braveheart's not a great movie, and in this case that doesn't mean that Dunkirk's not a great movie. I'm just saying, serious historical inaccuracies. But I'm always the first to say, movies are there to entertain, not to necessarily be documentaries or forms of education, though they can obviously be that. And with that said, in conclusion, I am scoring Dunkirk 8 out of 10. I was left marvelling that a film of such grand magnitude could leave me with moments, not of action, although the action set pieces were great, and when they hit hard, notably the Spitfire scenes, but those aren't the parts that will stay with me. The parts that are going to stay with me in this movie are the quieter moments. The quiet visions that ultimately, I believe, define the movie. Of a man walking hopelessly into the sea towards home, or of Branag's face expressively staring off into the distance. Those are the moments that I believe are going to stand the test of time. Not to mention, minor spoiler if you haven't seen it, other than one final scene, you never see the Germans. And the fact that the enemy is felt so powerfully, yet never seen, is testament to how immaculately this movie's put together. And I implore you all, although I've said that it's the quiet moments, that it's the sound, this movie is a visual treat and still needs to be seen on the cinema. Please, if you haven't seen it yet, go and see Dunkirk, because it is a solid movie, and this is one of the best war movies we have had in a very long time. So over to you guys as always. What did you think of Dunkirk? Did you like it? Did you not like it? And what score would you give it? I don't usually ask that. I'd be interested to know that. Please give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Let me also know what your favourite Christopher Nolan movie is, and also let's go for this. What's your favourite war movie? Leave all those down and below. Please share this video with anyone who you think may be interested in, and any movie fans you may know. And as always guys, Nico Luro from the Silver Screen Dudes. See ya.